Hello. Had some unfortunate internet problems due to thunderstorms returning, so I tried to stream an episode of Fresh Run, and the stream got disconnected and everything was just unstable, so I had to stop. But I got like 38 minutes or so. It's going to be episode 8.5. I'm just talking in I guess what they call in post. I don't know. I just want to talk about random stuff. Not quite random, but I just want to make commentary about what's happening on screen, and then also what's going on with certain concepts mumbling around in my brain, specifically related to concepts. Yes, concepts about concepts. Wonderful. How annoyingly weird. Anyway, I've been realizing that a lot of the time when I'm playing specific games, I really love RPGs, action RPGs. I'm looking for, well, ways to dominate the encounter. I want to not only just barely scrape by and beat the game, I want to destroy it. I want to crush it. I want to be very satisfied with my experience having learned and mastered the game. And so far, Valheim's been allowing me to do this wonderfully. There's just a lot of ways which bosses can be dominated, strategies, good strats, and working around with certain gear here and there, even though they can't be staggered. And staggering and frost slowdown are the biggest things in Valheim, which really allows you to totally dominate encounters. Yeah, this aspect of control here is just phenomenal. Now, there are other ways which things can be extremely good in games, specifically action games or action RPGs. What I just did right there on screen, range and speed. You got ranged attacks, fast attacks. Those, of course, very good. People know that generally, though. Support, so supporting things, odd utility. In Valheim, it's aggro radius manipulations, manipulating aggro with like Huntsman Bow or making things super loud with Stagbreaker Sledge or even a spear toss. That sort of thing is really cool, really good to dominate with. I guess I'll expand more on support. So control can often be supporting if you're playing co-op. Basically, you set up somebody in melee or somebody who's more focused on DPS with a debuff to the enemy. All of a sudden, if you're slowing the enemy down, now your DPS guy can get in 3 free hits without worrying about an enemy attack instead of just getting maybe 1 or even no free hits in. Which means you're bringing a whole bunch of more damage to the table for your group just by playing support. And that sort of teamwork and dominance and strategy is what I'm super, super interested in. I love that. I also like the idea of just directly buffing up teammates. So Staff of Protection, also very good. I really enjoy that. That's just a lot of fun. Valheim really lets you do all that stuff wonderfully. But in addition to just the concept of dominating instead of just barely scraping by, there's also, concepts in regards to your character. What flavor of combat or dominating or just crushing the encounters, what flavor of that are you going for? What do you like to do? Do you like to be the archer? Do you seek that in games? Do you seek out sort of barbarian or a warrior? Do you seek out a mage or a battle mage? For the longest time, I looked to be a battle mage. I really, really enjoyed being able to be a jack of all trades and a master of a few, because I saw that most character concepts or classes, you were like a very, very keen specialist on one thing. Okay, you had your role, you had this thing. I never wanted that. I wanted to weave in and out of roles and still have something that I could really say that I excelled at. And a lot of the games early on actually let me do this. So Final Fantasy IX, my favorite game of all time. there's a character, Amarant, and he is a phenomenally balanced character. You can kind of do a whole bunch of stuff. He can deal damage from the front row very well with claws, specifically Kaiser Knuckles. You boost the wind damage on that, and it's just exceptional. The way that wind element works in Final Fantasy IX is a lot of characters are, well, weak to wind, as any creature in the air is automatically weak to wind, just automatically. And it's just super convenient, because once you know that, oh man, the wind damage is absurd. Not to mention the Kaiser Knuckles are just incredible damage for just the whole game, like 75 attack power when I think the highest attack is 102 with the Excalibur 2. I could be wrong, I haven't used the Excalibur 2 in forever. But yeah, it's just incredible. Of course, dealing wind damage, taking advantage of that element, and then just being in melee and using a bunch of abilities that stack damage regarding to the enemy's typing, whether it's like Bird Killer, specifically Bird Killer because you're going to be destroying a lot of aerial enemies, and Bird Killer isn't really Bird Killer. It's, I think, a mistranslation from the Japanese, where it's just like Aerial Killer, anything in the air. So you're stacking all these things together, and you can absolutely crush in melee, but Amarant also has an ability called No Mercy. And No Mercy allows you to shoot out a powerful, like, chakra orb. He's a monk, ninja type character. And you are able to really just shoot out from the back row a projectile, Kamehameha, basically, but just an orb, a little orb. And this orb is strong. This thing is brutal. Of course, it's wind elemental because we're using the Kaiser Knuckles. And so we're able to decimate from the back row as well, and you're able to sort out all of the abilities that you use to boost melee attacks into a bunch of supporting abilities, because he also has Chakra. Chakra's ability, which you can use on yourself or another party member, and it will restore a bunch of HP, but also MP. And the beautiful thing is, Chakra is very inexpensive MP to cast, so you can cast it on yourself, and you can pretty much just play back row support for the entirety of a combat and or boss encounter. It is incredible the type of versatility that he has. In addition to that, he has a command called Throw. And this command, well, allows you to throw old weapons, or specifically throwing weapons, to really deal big damage from the back row as well. This time, it's physical damage instead of whatever element that you'll be casting with No Mercy. This is just top notch. I love playing as Amarant. He also doesn't really have any, like, super strong ultimate abilities. Everything about him is pretty balanced. Even then, with all of the things, all of the ways that you can set him up, the stat maxing that you can do in that game when you level up with certain types of gear, you can very regularly deal max damage with his attacks. So even if you're not really guaranteed, look at this janky Desquito, by the way. Look at this thing. Goofy fella. Even if you're not guaranteed to deal max damage like some other characters' attacks, you're looking at Dragon Crest with Freya, Thievery with Zidane. There's a lot of ways that you can get max damage regardless, and it doesn't feel like it's very cheap. You just work on all of the game's mechanics that you've gotten so far instead of sidestepping them. So it feels very balanced, feels very rewarding. I love Amarant as a character, and he is just sort of this all-rounder that can just excel, and he's very balanced. And so that concept has always been near and dear to me ever since I sort of got to play and master Final Fantasy IX as a wee lad. Going forward, Champions of Norath and Champions Return to Arms, PS2 classics. I loved them. I played the hell out of them. I went back and I mastered them. Having a great time, better than all the guides that you can see on GameFAQs, all them old school guides. But can't blame them because they are old school guides from, like, well, I wouldn't call them old school, but you know what I mean. 2006, 2009, that sort of thing. I think Champions of North came out 2002, Champions Return to Arms came out 2004. And at the beginning, as a youngin', I was always into The barbarian. Yeah, big, strong. Oh, I use slam and I get big numbers and my neurons activate, and I very quickly grew out of that. Like, very, very quickly stopped being interested because there are a lot of really weird things about that barbarian class. You didn't have a set mana regen. Your spells weren't terribly amazing. Sure, you could have some abilities which are really cool, but they really lacked in execution. So ground pound was really nice. It had some great stun, but the wind up is so damn slow that it's really not worth it. It's brutal. It is so brutal. Like the class is such setup towards just raw damage, neuron activating damage in co-op, which I mean, co-op in that game is so much fun. But it's so set up towards that I don't even care about I don't really care about the barbarian anymore because well, we're set up towards one thing. Every other character class can do 3 or 4 things to a great degree, and they specialize on like a couple of niche things. Now, barbarians just like, well, I want to bonk them. It's like, okay, well, where's your good control? Where's your good range strategy? It's like, well, I'm okay with a bow. I can do this. It's like, oh, well, okay, you're like a more of a warrior type now. You can operate it so that you keep slam at level 1, because slam, when you hit him, it's not just about the big damage. Sure, it has a nice damage modifier, but it also has a decent amount of stun on it where you can combo it into another thing, or if you're playing with co-op, your pals can combo from there, which is nice, but really the no mana regen on that, I mean, you've gone from being a tactical warrior back to being a barbarian really fast. And every other character can be a tactical warrior. And so when you have a group and you're trying to play smart, oh, the barbarian really suffers because they're extremely limited. And so very quickly I fell in love with the other classes and the concepts that they brought forward, which are very much, measured warriors. They can cast, they can be battle mages, they can set out tiny bolts of whatever energy, and they can control enemy or an enemies or a group of enemies, and then they can just buff up, run in, and just smack the hell out of the enemy. Some of them can even like summon or heal, or summon and heal, and do all sorts of nonsense like ranged magical damage that also knocks enemies down and sets them on fire, which can also lead to them being stunned from the fire for a little bit, which is just devastating. And then they can also grow large, buffing themselves movement speed and attack speed. I'm talking about the Ixar Shaman, okay? The Ixar Shaman in Champions Return to Arms is fucking nasty. It is the most absurd character class option that I've ever seen in a game. Like, that is the option. Like, if you're going to be a truly optimal group, like of 3 in Champions Return to Arms, it's like, okay, well, one Dark Elf Shadow Knight, the female version, because for some reason they have a better moveset on certain weapons, I don't know. And 2 Ixar Shamans, because they can do everything and then some, and you can just absolutely destroy each and every boss and encounter that you come across. And it's a battle mage style jack of all trades, a master of like 4. That it's just very good, very dominant, and it's very fun. But again, it doesn't feel as balanced per se, or as fun as the Shadow Knight. The Shadow Knight, oh man, so much fun. The Shadow Knight deserves its own video because it's so much fun to talk about. It's very balanced in the same way that Amarant is balanced in terms of Final Fantasy IX, but there's still some great dominance to be had. And the great difference, I don't know why I'm blanking on the word here, but the thing that makes a difference is your own personal skill. And that's what made me extremely satisfied as I got better and better at the game. Which, not only was this very fun, but it was very good the better I got at it. It was just incredible, and it just got better and better. And I just started dominating. which is what I want to do in games. So I was having a amazing time, but there was something missing. Something missing, lurking in all of our little lizard brains, right? Big numbers, big neuron activation moments, going ham. Being that concept, that barbarian. I needed that somewhere. But it didn't come to be for quite a while because I was really into the Ixar Shaman concept. I was really into the Shadow Knight concept. I really liked the idea of the contrast between nature and death, life and death, that sort of thing. Just hit my glass. Luckily, it didn't spill. And all of this is to say, I was really into the natural sort of thing. You see how I have like grass in all of my buildings in Valheim? I still love the nature concept. I love watching like hiking videos like Craig Adams over on YouTube. Like if you ever feel like nauseous, but you know that like you don't have to yak, you know what I'm saying? Absolutely watch a Craig Adams video. Holy shit. So calming, so peaceful. I love it. If I ever just really need to sleep, I'll watch one of those as well. Phenomenal sort of video. I just love that style. And so the next time I was able to actually go and enjoy and dominate with this sort of natural nature man concept in a game, wasn't even a video game at all. It was D&D 5e. First time I ever got into Dungeons and Dragons. I'm only 25. Oh well. Couldn't get into the earlier editions. Wasn't around really, or I was too young to really take advantage of all of the systems to my liking, let's say. And my first character was a moon druid. Shmorist of the Forest was his name. This goofy motherfucker. I loved playing Shmorist of the Forest. So silly. I brought him to like new games. I made different variants of him. I think I made like 3 or 4 different variants with different races trying to get everything set up. Now he's like a shepherd druid, just being a nightmare with all of his summons and creatures. Thankfully not velociraptors, a little too overpowered there. But giant owls, yes. Filthy. Absolutely nasty with conjure animals. Oh my god, that spell. A lot of people ban that spell, and yeah, I get it, but I also want to summon animals like that. It's very fun. It's very dominating. And it brings a lot of support and control to the tables because, well, they're big meat sacks which are dealing damage, and they can fly, and you can use them for recon, and I could just go on, but I feel like I should do my own video about that, or make its own video, Finally, though, I got into a bunch of Souls games, like really into them. Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, specifically Bloodborne, and then Dark Souls 3, and then Elden Ring in that order. Man, a lot of my Battle Mage stuff, a lot of my Battle Mage concepts, they were satisfied. So a lot of the dark, gritty, death-oriented, intense, like arcane stuff that came from playing the Shadow Knight, Champions of Norath, Return to Arms, that came back with a burning passion with basically Dark Souls 3 is a pyro build, and Bloodborne, just playing an arcane build. Oh my god, that's so lovely. I had a great time, and I lived and loved those mechanics and those concepts. I had an amazing time with that, but it wasn't perfect. The dominance isn't entirely there. You don't quite have your control, your dominant. You can have big neuron activating numbers, you can have good back and forth satisfaction, but not quite dominant. Not quite there. There are some instances in Bloodborne where you're fighting beasts and you can sort of do this limb breaking thing, and that hit. Oh my god, that was so amazing. I loved doing that. Absolutely, just 0 to death combos, absolutely shredding certain bosses like Dark Beast Parl, Vicar Amelia, of course the Cleric Beast, stuff like that was phenomenal. I loved every minute of destroying these beasts. Ooh, so much fun. But I was missing that control. I was missing that dominance, that CC elements that my champions characters had, all of their options. Oh my god, I was missing so much of that. And it came. It came in Elden Ring. Every single build in Elden Ring has the ability to control enemies and bosses, and that's because of the stance break mechanic. Ooh, stance break, yes! So now the dominance is back, and I can enjoy pretty much any concept that I like. Any build that piques my interest, I can really enjoy it to the fullest. And oh my god, I've been in the middle of having fun with that game right now. I have like 750 hours plus in that game. I plan to have well over 1,000, maybe even 2,000 by the time the DLC's out, and we're all having fun with that. And oh man, that is just a really, really good time. So good, in fact, is that time that I actually got back into the barbarian concept. Playing strength builds, using big, beefy weapons, neuron activating damage numbers. Oh yes, it all returned because of how good the stance system is. Wow, I never expected myself to return enjoying that. Because whenever I had started to play and enjoy some sort of barbarian system before then, it slowly devolved into not quite that. And now I was still having fun, I was still really enjoying them. Still really enjoying these games for what they are. But they weren't quite barbarians that you could really get to know and experience. And in Elden Ring, you could do that. Of course, well, you could also do that in a game that I played prior to Elden Ring. God of War 2018. Yes. Love that. Oh, it's so satisfying. Of course, it is a barbarian, and you have certain abilities attached to your special weapon. You're very measured. You are a proper, measured warrior. Not quite the barbarian that we once knew. Of course, you have Spartan Rage, and there's character reasons, really juicy, wonderful character reasons why we don't want to be that old style barbarian. Man, that character arc that Kratos goes on is fucking phenomenal. Love that. But not quite the barbarian. And so I don't have as much neuron activation. There's still some amazing moments, but it's really just a cinematic joy experience. There's a lot of potential jank in that game. There's the Joseph Anderson review, and just you really start to experience it on critical mode, or give me God of War mode, when the normal enemies become far more difficult than the bosses, because they're like constantly off screen and deal a million damage. You can't really keep tabs on them. Especially bad in like the tutorial area when you can't even run and you're just dealing with these randomly buffed up enemies from off screen that can just two-tap you. It's like, fuck off, game. Stop doing that to me. But enough about the higher difficulties in the jank. The measured warrior of Kratos in God of War Remake and Ragnarok, although I haven't played it yet. Still has a similar system, of course. The measured warrior is phenomenal. And that concept I will always love from Champions moving forward and throughout all these games. But I've still yet to become that barbarian that I once was. Until Valheim. Yes, Valheim's back. Yes. See, Elden Ring wasn't the first thing that really started activating my neurons on big beefy weapons and on big damage numbers. No, it was Valheim. Even though I'm a very measured warrior at times, you can tell by the way that I play, I'm very particular, very careful. I have specific lines that utter a lot, like we spin and we win. Huntsman bow has a 4-meter aggro radius instead of every other bow is 8 meters. Bonk. You know, there are hints of barbarian that come through in these games. Or when you're playing Valheim, like what you spin and we win, just poke city, just absolutely mashing that poke, or well, mashing before Hearth and Home, and now we can click and hold. I love that. Stagger locking enemies, just that's the sound of me poking Yak Gear for some reason. I love it. It's the Sentinel Shack. Ooh. Ooh, that is the most neuron activating barbarian type activities. And of course, that style is enabled by none other than the Bone Mass ability. And yeah, Bone Mass. Ooh, Bone Mass. That ability right there is probably the most fun, the most fun barbarian concept thing that I've ever experienced. Maybe tied with Spartan Rage, but man, barbarians throughout Valheim, we're back. We're back and we're living. And even though there's mage stuff, there's a little clip here that I recorded before I realized that connection was unstable. Even though we have mage gear, mage casting, magic in full front, magic weapons, frost arrows, a measured warrior, battle mage, pure mages. In co-op, the barbarian is still there, waiting, taking big numbers into consideration, absolutely demolishing enemies, getting that sneak crom middle mouse 1400 damage on an enemy or a boss. Those one shots juicier than ever. And oh man, the future of Valheim, Ashlands, Hilder's Quest, all of that, Deep North. Ooh, the barbarian type of play style. I'll be there. I'll be doing an analysis for it, along with all the other concepts, but especially that. I'll be there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys some other time. Bye.